Well, the pivotal moment in Arthur C. Clarke's 2001 A Space Odyssey is not actually in Stanley Kubrick's movie. It's where Dave Bowman approaches the monolith out in space, and just as the Stargate is about to open, he says, "Oh my God, it's full of stars." Hi, everybody. I'm Bill Whittle here with Steve Green and Scott Ott, motivated by that remarkable phrase because our operations manager just said that looking out into the country, it's full of crazy. And that's really what's happening. Oh my God, it's full of crazy. I don't think we have to elaborate too much on how much craziness we've seen during this last week with the Kavanaugh thing. And I do not want to suggest that having a different opinion than me means you're crazy. I want to assert that that is the case. No, but I'm not talking about a difference of opinion. I'm not saying, oh, the progressives are crazy, the liberals are crazy. I am saying that the signs of genuinely bat guano crazy behavior are really starting to show up, and they're starting to show up mostly, it seems to me, on the left. Steve, I don't know where to start, honestly. We were told about a woman who was shrieking at one of the Republican senators, saying, you're supporting a mass rapist.
Yeah.
That's pretty bat guano crazy. Why don't you break that one down for me?
Oh, so much to talk about here. You know, the night before the Kavanaugh hearing, Thursday night, all 10 of those Democratic senators on the Judiciary Committee signed on to the letter that claimed that Kavanaugh was part of this alcoholic date rape gang. We went from a no substance allegation of unwanted affection, let's say, that never escalated to rape or anything like it, but still a completely, as far as we can tell, baseless accusation because it's been contradicted by several and substantiated by no one, up to alcoholic gang rape leader. That is absolutely insane. Today's big thing, this is we're taping this on Tuesday morning. Today's big thing was Kavanaugh apparently once threw the leftover ice in a drink at somebody, and then the immediate social justice warfare mob started to argue that throwing ice is just one step down the road to gang rape or pedophilia or something. It's been all over the map. They just keep escalating based on absolutely nothing. I wrote this one down because I really wanted to get her name right. I was unaware of her. Virginia Heffernan, part of the Blue Check Mafia on Twitter, writes for Wired and a bunch of other left-wing publications, tweeted yesterday, "It truly doesn't hurt all that much to be accused of gang rape if you've never gang raped." Well, you know, tell that to the guy who did get accused of that, and then...
What?
Yes. Britt Hume said this was like the dumbest thing anybody had ever said, and that's how I found it, because I actually follow Britt Hume, because he's a sensible guy. So the guy who did get accused of gang rape on Thursday appeared before the Senate on Friday and displayed righteous anger at having been accused of gang rape by apparently this thing, you know, that the Democrats signed on to the night before. And then they say, well, clearly he doesn't have the temperament to be a United States senator, this angry gang rapist, alcoholic fiend. So, yeah, we really are living in an age of crazy. And, Bill, this other one just broke open this morning, real clear investigations. You'll recall that a big part of Christine Blasey Ford's testimony hinged on the fact that this all came out in 2012 when she and her husband were remodeling their home and she needed the second front door as her escape route. And so they
Which was put in when?
Hey, that's what I'm getting to. Apparently, by the time this all came out in 2012, the door had been in since 2007 and wasn't an escape route. It was a second entrance for various businesses using the address. So she is so far removed from reality, or insane, as we might say, cray-cray, that she can get up on the stand and, I won't say tearfully because I didn't see any actual tears, but in that little girl crying voice, make these absurd claims that are contradicted by the actual record. And she had been very careful not to make any statements that could be construed as perjury to the United States Senate. But this one, it's on the record. It can be construed as perjury, and I hope they nail her to the wall for this thing.
You know, Scotty, what we're seeing now with this Kavanaugh thing is we're seeing two different views of not just of America, but the world. And both of these views are being condensed into crystalline form so that it's compacted so much together that every single thing that conservatives believe in is manifested in Brett Kavanaugh, and every single thing that progressives believe in is manifested in Dr. Ford. And that's why this thing has the power that it does. Kavanaugh represents everything that we believe in terms of hard work, honesty, decency, unfair smear attacks because there's no evidence whatsoever. It's a outrage of rational people against an emotional attack. And on the other side, we got the lunatics. I mean, what else do you say? Their accusations about him being a rapist are based on things that are not factually provable or even true. And it's the same thing with all Republicans or Nazis. It's an assertion, and your entire political philosophy is predicated on an assertion that isn't true. And the reason we know it's not true is because of things like when they went and started calling the Tea Party a bunch of racists. They're all racist, obviously. They must be racist because they disagree with us. Well, let's go and show all the racist signs at Tea Party events. Well, there aren't any. So therefore, let's manufacture signs that are racist, and let's take them to Tea Party events and pretend that we're Tea Party members in order to prove the hypothesis that exists in our minds and not only is not supported by evidence, but is in fact contradicted by the evidence. This kind of solipsism, this kind of the sense that it's me, what I feel, is half the country now. And it's going to be a challenge to live in a world where these kind of things become more and more normal.
I don't really think it's half the country. And the term you use,
so.
I hope not, yeah.
The term that you use, crystalline, is I was thinking before you started saying that I think we have some little nuggets that get an undue amount of attention. You know, these little concentrated pools of crazy that we see, and because we see them and we see them repeatedly, and then they get echoed by other little crazies, we assume that it affects a huge number of people. But I live in the real world most of the time. You know, I'm in a store, I sell furniture, and I see people all day long. And I'm not saying that none of them are crazy. I'm just saying it's pretty rare that you run across somebody where you think, whoa, that guy's really whacked, you know. For the most part, people are of all different political persuasions, different races, different religions, walk about in public sanely without drooling or staggering, treating each other with respect and dignity. What's happening, though, is that there is a whole cottage industry of people who make their money by amplifying these little nuggets and turning them into something huge. And then there are politicians who see political benefit. If, as one, great Democratic senator surely must have said, if Christine Blasey Ford didn't exist, we created her. And I think that that's really what we're seeing. I'm not saying that she's a made-up situation, but if they didn't have her, they'd have something like her. Yeah, they'd have to create something like her. And as you've seen, the echo of her has been some other people who even seem less likely to be telling the truth than she is. And so I guess I'm saying this to our viewers to say, it can get really discouraging to watch the news and even to listen to my commentary a lot of times, or the commentary of people on the right, because it does seem like our hair's on fire and the world's going to hell in a handbasket all the time. I don't really think it's that crazy out there. I think that a few crazies have been able to get a hold of the bullhorn and be able to shout and chant and make you think that they're much bigger than they are. There's a great scene from the Old Testament where there's this battle and God winnows the army, this vast army, down to just 300 guys. And these guys go at night and they carry torches and clay jars. And then they surround the enemy camp, or they stand near the enemy camp, and they break the clay jars, and they start shouting with a loud voice, and the enemy panics and runs. And I think that's what we're seeing. The people on the left who are trying to gin up this insanity think that by making all this noise and the fire and the sound and the fury of it, that we are going to run. But leadership is about standing in the face of the gale. And I think if we are willing to stand on the deck and just hold, just keep a steady course and not get flustered by all this, this too shall pass. And we will find that the dawn is a much brighter place, and that some of those crazies have found that there's no market anymore for what they're doing.
This is the operational issue, and it's what you just closed with. Is there a market for this? Will this be rewarded? Will this tactic and strategy be rewarded, or will it be repudiated so thoroughly that they will give some serious thought before they try this again? A lot of the people who say, how can you believe a multiple rapist, are not in nature bad people. This is what they believe. This is what this emotional response is all they've ever known. But you cannot put the people who actually set up this assassination of Kavanaugh's character, you can't put that in the same category of decent people who just happen to disagree. That is malicious, low, dishonorable, cowardly, evil people at work for personal political gain. So those are the people we're talking about. And in 5 weeks, we're going to find out. We're going to find out whether or not the country still has enough of a soul to understand injustice, and enough of a soul to understand the injustice that's been done to Ford, by the way, who apparently never wanted to get this public, and who said she did not have any idea that the Republicans offered to fly out to her place and interview her in private. She didn't know that until the day after she testified. That means that she's as much of a victim of this manipulation as Kavanaugh is, although I have a different level of respect and certainly sympathy for Kavanaugh than I do for Dr. Ford. So that's the issue, and the issue is going to be, we're going to determine pretty quickly whether or not this country still has a rational foundation to it. It's a shame, to say the least. This is the first day I felt actually a little happier. The whole last 7-8 days I've been upset about politics. I've been depressed about politics. I wasn't happy when Obama won. I was less happy when he was reelected. But the last 7 or 8 days have left me feeling just sad. They certainly left me angry, and they've certainly left me frustrated and depressed. But I've never had this sense of sadness, just of gloom, like the lights are going out, and I thought it would take longer than this. So I would just close by saying this: we, as a people who rationally understand that every single person, not just Democrats, not just progressives, every single person has a fault line that runs through their heart that allows them to be capable of doing some dreadful things, and the more they're allowed to get away with it, the more dreadful things they will do, have managed to create a society that has, with extraordinary success, managed to keep power dispersed to the degree where you don't have a tyranny. And we all think, all of us as conservatives, think that the reason that the government is not putting us in camps and taking over is because of our fact that we're heavily armed. We've always been prepared for the government to come after us with guns, and so we have guns to protect ourselves against the government doing that. The bottom line is, I got to keep saying this because it's so important, we have so well protected ourselves against a government takeover from guns that we are like Singapore. We are a fortress where all of our giant pieces of artillery are facing out into the ocean, where the Japanese Navy is going to come. And Singapore is so well defended against a sea attack that the Japanese realize that it's pointless to go against this. We're going to not be attacking Singapore with the Japanese Navy at sea. We're going to take Singapore with the Japanese Army by coming in through the jungle. And what I mean by that is this: if you thought that the destruction of your freedom was going to come from somebody pointing a gun at you, I thought so too, but that's not it. They're going to destroy your freedom by destroying your character. They're going to destroy your ability to speak your mind. They're already doing it. You cannot say in California Cafe, I support Donald Trump, loud enough to be heard. You find yourself just bowing your head and saying things like this. And you can say, well, you should be more gutsy about it. It's like, okay, yeah, I should. But this is how it's coming. It's not coming from sea. And it's not coming from where we're expecting it, and it's surely not coming from where we're prepared for it. It is coming from the jungle. And we need to get ourselves understood about this very quickly. And we need to understand that we'd better turn ourselves around right quick and start facing into the pop culture where this tyranny and this kind of murder is coming from. There is a time when people would have basically tried to shoot Kavanaugh because they thought he was a threat to the Supreme Court. Fortunately, the people we're dealing with are such cowards, as a general rule, that they've chosen a different way to do that. They've shot at him and assassinated his character and destroyed his family as thoroughly as if they'd thrown a firebomb into it, as thoroughly as burning a cross on his yard. And I find it so interesting that once again it's the Democrats who are taking the lynch mob attitude. Do you not know? Do you not know how many innocent black men were strung up on trees at the end of the last century, the beginning of last century, the end of the century before that? Do you know how many black men were lynched by Democrats? Because that's basically what the South was. And the reason they were lynched is because a young white woman had said that this guy had raped me. And in virtually all of these cases, what had actually happened was this young white woman had gotten pregnant from her boyfriend. And this was such an anathema that she had to blame it on somebody else. This is the entire theme of To Kill a Mockingbird. And progressives, you are on the side of the mob that's trying to lynch an innocent person because somebody said something, and you got to stop. So whether you stop or not, we will see whether we can stop you. I think the Kavanaugh hearing is Stalingrad. And I don't know whether we're going to stop the Nazis at Stalingrad. I don't know. I feel like we might. If we don't, we'll have no one to blame but ourselves. So we better get out there and vote like we've never voted before, because I've never wanted to cast a vote this much in my life.
Oh, man.
Not for Trump, not for anybody. Not ever have I wanted to get to the polls the way I want to get to the polls right now. So we'll see. That'll do it for this edition of Right Angle, and it is made possible by a very small number of people who understand where the threat is coming from, and they understand that it's coming from the jungle. And instead of sending money to the NRA, which is a super fantastic cause to send it to, don't get me wrong, I love them. But the guns are pointing the wrong way. The enemy's not coming from there. And we are one of the few places that understand where this threat is coming from. We understand how to fight it. So if you can help us support us, we sure would love to hear about it. You can see us over at BillWhittle.com. That'll do it for this edition of Right Angle. We will see you next week, and thanks again for the support, and thanks for joining us.